I'm going to introduce you to my entire full-time staff responsible for helping me run Triad Real Estate Media, Real Estate Photography Masterclass, and our most recent scheduling software available for everybody, Real Estate Media Hero. Today, on episode 3 of Real Estate Photography Unlocked.
I'm just trying to get mine, but these agents got me losing my mind. Whatever happened to the good times? Man, forget about it. It's showtime. Let me show you how to get some rest, how to make millions, how to be your best. This is shout out to the REPs, to the shooters, producers, and the newbies. Welcome to our podcast. I'm your rep MC. We're here every week talking real estate photography.
Hey everybody, welcome to Real Estate Photography Unlocked. It's vacant, go anytime. And today we're just introducing the team. Happy to introduce you to my third employee, but this is our entire team here at Triad Real Estate Media and Real Estate Photography Unlocked. Zachary von Eichelberger. And yes, that is his real middle name. And one of the reasons, actually I didn't know that was his real middle name until after I hired him. But how you doing, man?
Doing good.
All right, happy to have you on the podcast. We're going to be having special guests whenever we can, but a possible regular episode will look more like this, where it's just me and Zach sitting down and chatting real estate photography, answering your guys' questions. And I apologize if the lighting situation here is a little bit overly creative, but we decided to do this like this, with just the two of us, kind of last minute. So we're thinking about how we want to do the lighting, and we've also been very busy with Real Estate Media Hero, making software. We've been closing or starting to close deals with brokerages in our area for Triad Real Estate Media, and we're also launching Real Estate Photography Masterclass version 2, and we'll go into exactly how we're able to accomplish all of this with just the two of us in this episode. In this episode, we're going to talk about first Zachary's his introduction into real estate photography. He is a phenomenal astrophotographer and is the reason why I reached out to him to work with me, because I saw his work ethic and his attention to detail and capability. The second part of the podcast, we're going to talk about Real Estate Media Hero and lots of the updates we've been doing with Real Estate Media Hero. We've got a big announcement coming up at the end of this week or early next week. That's where, and stay tuned for that. And we're also launching version 2 of Real Estate Photography Masterclass and Mentorship. So lots of exciting things coming up for people. This is very healthy for the industry. As I announced in the Real Estate Videography Facebook group, I am trying to start a campaign here and successfully doing it, where I'm going sector by sector in the real estate photography industry and setting a standard of quality and education, because I just feel that there's a lot of people out there trying to take advantage of people. Anyway, that's long enough for the introduction. Let's hop into your story, Zach Eichelberger. How early did you get started in astrophotography? Because, and maybe we can what's your Instagram if they want to check out your work?
My Instagram handle would be wannabe Hubble. WWANNABEHUBBLE.
And that's the Hubble,
Yeah.
It's a wannabe Hubble, right?
Yeah.
Well, you do a really good job with it, man.
Yeah, we all strive to kind of get as close to that as possible. It's kind of like a standard in the hobby, but most of us are far away from it, but we try to get, as close to the colors and everything, so.
All right. Well, how did you get started and how young? Because you've been doing this for a long time, and I noticed it pretty early. And I've seen you, around town doing events, whether it be for church or other things. And I always appreciated that you were a young kid, now a young man, but I saw you as a young kid working hard and trying to hustle. So what got you started in photography, and what was the interest there, and how did you end up in astrophotography?
Oh man, I started photography probably around 8 or 9, I want to say. I caught, my dad had an old, I think it was like a Canon point and shoot. I just, messed around that with the house and everything, and it led from one camera to another. I got my first DSLR, and, I look back at the photos and I'm like, whoa.
Right.
But, it's always like that. We start everywhere, but it got to the point where, I would find new things to photograph, and I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. I'm going to, I want to get new gear and everything, and I want to, start watching YouTube, like Peter McKinnon, people like that.
Mm-hmm.
really got me started. I had been into photography probably 7 or 8 years, I want to say. I had been using wide angle lenses and everything, and I was just outside one night, pointed at the sky, see what stars I could get. I didn't really know what I could capture. I noticed there was like a little smudge in one of my photos. I was like, well, what is that? And I found out it was the Andromeda Galaxy that I had captured, in like an 8-second exposure. And I was like, wow, this is okay. So what can I actually do if I tried?
Right.
And I started looking at, articles, YouTube videos, people that have been doing it for a long time. I realized, oh, wow, this is a whole hobby. I can put some gear together and actually try to capture some stuff. And one thing led to another. I didn't realize how expensive the hobby was going to be. That's probably one of the
story of all of our lives.
Yeah, photography is already expensive. Astrophotography is such a niche subcategory of photography. Just prices are even higher if you want to, start progressing. But through eBay and some, there's this site called Cloudy Nights that has lots of used astro gear on it. But through that, I was able to, knock down some overall price of the hobby, so I could, start upgrading gear and stuff.
So how did you fund all this? If you started when you were 8 or 9, and then after you said 8 years or so, that would make you around 16. A lot of people do photography and are interested in making money in it, and that's what some people attract some people to real estate photography. And this is a real estate photography podcast. What are some of the ways you made money and funded your hobby? Was it outside of photography, just doing other jobs, or were you actually making money with photography somehow?
It started probably fairly early on, and then I started, that's when I started, kind of have people asking me to shoot events or something. And so there for a while, I did a little bit of freelance, nothing serious. I could, if I really pushed it, I probably could have done a lot more. I had people, asking to shoot events and stuff like that. So I got a bit of money from that. And then, I started working and everything, and that was probably the major funding. Would save up for whatever I wanted to upgrade, which was few in between. I usually try to keep my camera for about, couple years at least before I upgraded it. So yeah, it was mainly, when I started working, I was able to kind of upgrade a lot of stuff. So
okay, cool. And so you started getting into astrophotography. Now let's fast forward it and talk about where you're at in astrophotography today. You shoot some incredible stuff. Make sure you guys check out Wannabe Hubble, not just because I'm trying to promote him, but because his stuff is actually amazing. And this is what intrigued me as an employer and as an experienced photographer. Like, ooh, this guy would be great to work with. And I know a big question out there for real estate photographers, especially one-man show real estate photographers, is how do you get started scaling your business and getting employees? One of the things that is a huge green flag in potential employees is seeing other photographers who aren't overly obsessed with like, oh, hustle, make money. They're enjoying the process. Now, some of the process can be a little bit of a issue if they're obsessed and perfectionistic. And certainly astrophotographers, car photographers, and everything else can have a perfectionism streak. I do as well. As long as they're an experienced photographer that doesn't have experience in real estate specifically, I have found that they are great candidates for being an employee because you can teach them real estate photography and train them in real estate photography much faster than you can someone who doesn't know photography at all. And they still have a blank slate where you can say, hey, you may be very detail-oriented in your astrophotography because you have to think about, and I'm speaking out of my wheelhouse here, but all sorts of things that can affect the shot, that can introduce interference or distraction or affect the sharpness of the image. And we want to pay attention to a little bit of that in real estate photography, but the main goal in real estate photography is establishing and getting a certain result or a certain quality. And then once we get to that level, we're trying to do it faster and consistent and turned around quickly. So I always train employees and say, hey, you have a capability that is way above what I need. I actually need you to chill out a little bit and focus on other areas. And we'll talk about more of that in a second once we actually get into your introduction to real estate photography. But how do you get such high quality shots and up close shots of some of these galaxies? You are zooming in at like 1000 x, it seems, with no Hubble. You don't have a telescope. Well, you have a small telescope. I've seen his setup because we actually shot a partial eclipse together, and it was a bit embarrassing showing up with all of his special equipment. And then I just had a little 70 to 200 with a 2x teleconverter. Explain to us the process of, okay, you go from taking a wide angle shot and seeing a smudge on your photos to having phenomenal shots that have, from a professional's perspective, but not a professional in astrophotography. I would say a lot of your shots you're getting on your Instagram are much better than any shots I've seen in my middle school textbooks, which would be probably from the Hubble. And then you, on your computer here at work, you regularly upload new shots that you're always doing, and every single one is just incredible. Anyway, take us from the process in brief as much as you can to the smudge on the screen, wide angle, to this specialized shots and lenses and equipment, but also a bit of the process because it's complex.
Because starting out in photography, which I'm glad I did, because while astrophotography is a good balance of art with science, there is a lot more science involved with it than normal photography. So, and at first I was just using what I had learned through doing some quick, searching on articles and YouTube videos. I already knew about long exposures and everything about, you want to use higher ISO, long exposures to get, enough light on the sensor. But to maximize that, you want a lot of aperture, bigger telescopes, and starting out with camera lenses, they could get some actually surprising details. Like, wow, this is incredible. I didn't know I could even get this. But switching from the wide angle lens to just the telephoto lens really helped a lot.
But you said you're connecting telescopes to your... So how do you connect a telescope to a camera?
Well, once I moved on from the telephoto lenses, I picked up my first refractor, which is basically like a lens, but specialized for astronomical use. And it's got like the vintage lenses that had the M42 kind of threads. It's got a similar thing on the manual focuser that it has. So you just screw your camera on there. And of course they have dedicated astrophotography cameras that will of course also screw on there, but
goodness,
a few adapters and you're good to go.
How much does one of these refractors cost?
The one I started with, you could pick up used now for actually like, I want to say 300. Okay. And that's where a lot of people start off, and it's a really solid way. It's an easy to use design for a telescope. There's some other designs that are not so easy to, get acclimated to, but it's a nice one to start off with.
Okay. And once you have the equipment, you have a lot more light coming in to the sensor, and I know that you're squeezing every little pixel out that you can of the sensors that you use. Do you connect directly to the sensor by bypassing the camera software, or?
So with the DSLRs, I would use, at first I would just use the built-in intervalometer in a Nikon, but I then started using a laptop, plug that into USB, and depending on the camera, not all were compatible, but my Nikon was, I could use a software to go above the 30-second exposure cap. Right. So I could do, 2 minutes, 5 minutes if I wanted to, which comes with its own issues, but that gets into other equipment and stuff.
There's always pros and cons to every single thing, I imagine.
Yeah. But once you start using the laptop, it's a whole world of controllability and stuff that you can start doing, just organizing your acquisition, which is just capturing the photos. It's a fancy term we use. It's probably unnecessary, but
gosh. Okay. All right. So you have all of that. Do you just open up the shutter for 3 minutes and then call it good? Or is there, from what I understand, you will do several nights of exposures on a project. Is that
yes?
True? And how do you get them to line up after you reset the camera?
So that's probably one of the biggest questions I get from people that aren't familiar with the hobby and they're on my Instagram asking questions.
Yeah.
That's a big, and that's why I'm trying to do content as well, just because there's a lot of questions to answer. But when, like, you could just do a 3-minute sub exposure, but because of light pollution, the atmosphere, your camera sensors, the way the camera sensor works in general, the limitations of the lens or telescope, there's all these factors that make that single exposure not optimal to get the kind of detail that you would probably expect after looking at some of the Hubble's, images or just other amateur photographers that you've seen. But once you take, let's say, a dozen of those exposures, the way the sensors work, you can actually use software to combine those, and it automatically registers them, aligns them, and once you get the master stack that includes all 12 of those exposures, the noise is greatly reduced, so you can then increase contrast and stretch the image is what the term we use, and that in turn will let you bring out some of the detail that otherwise is lost in pollution. So it's a trick we use to get, because there's so many factors that limit us from just using a single exposure, because that's, in a perfect world, we could just do a single 1 hour exposure, but with light pollution, the image would just be white if you expose for that long. So
yeah, and this sounds, I think every industry, every niche in the real estate photography industry is like this, where you start out with a simple discovery like, ooh, that's the Andromeda, that smudge is the Andromeda galaxy. Let's see what I can do. And then you think, I just want to improve my image quality. And then you're deep in the weeds, discovering all sorts of interference and light leaks, as you were saying, atmosphere, all sorts of things that are going to affect your image, and you've got to take that into consideration. We do the same thing in real estate photography, where, okay, I want to get started in real estate photography. Oh, I need to make sure that I have my vertical straight, but how do I get such good color on the inside and the out? And then you start researching different ways to do that, and you could go, maybe start using Flash, or you start, doing something like Photomatix and automated HDR, and then it takes a long time to explore to actually get a process that works. And you oftentimes will go down the wrong road. For example, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody when I say this, if you guys have gone deep down the road of using Flash when you do real estate photography, either you're a confused architectural photographer or you're a really bad real estate photographer. If you're doing real estate photography, you shouldn't be using Flash purely because it slows down the process so much and inhibits your scalability so much that you're severely limiting yourself and your business. And you may be thinking, oh, well, the quality is better. That's where you're confused. Real estate photography and real estate agents don't care at that level about the quality of the image. You're talking about the final 1 or 2%. If you're doing Flash correctly, and a lot of you guys are not. Your Flash shots do not look as good as you think they do. Is there some discoveries you realized going through your astrophotography journey where, okay, people insist on using this piece of equipment, or they would die on this hill of using this process? Are there any things that you've learned? Like, I've taught you a few things, and we'll get into that in a few seconds, of, hey, you don't need to learn all of these rules and memorize all of these settings. You just need to keep this simple idea or rule of thumb in mind when you do this. If you remember this, everything else will fall into place. Is there anything like that you learned in astrophotography?
There is too many to name.
Okay.
It is constant aha moments.
Right.
It's insane. But the main thing was just less is better a lot of the times. Yeah.
Yes.
It really, like, because I would go down when I first started. I would just be trying to, like, oh, what can I do to get better? What techniques? And I wasn't, getting better and better, but I found myself, oh, wait a minute, this is a destructive process. I need to back away from that and find something else that's and then that led into finding people that have been doing it actually not too much longer than I have, but really paid attention to what's necessary, and they have, there's a lot of people that are, way smarter than me, and they have techniques that are incredible, and they seem complex at first, but they're actually there's a lot of math that goes on in this hobby, but it's usually not, it's like under the hood. So a lot of the times you're just using a user interface and everything. So
Right.
but sticking to manipulating the image with math instead of just sliders in Photoshop, which I still do that, but there's a certain point you get, like especially denoising, where because we are struggling with noise all the time, people like to get rid of it by just wrapping up Photoshop denoise slider, but that's built for terrestrial photography, which is sharp edges, like human, and it's not, the structures are very different between the two, and the algorithm they use, which is just not, it'll mud things up and cause color, too smooth colors and everything. So
Right.
But there's lots of different techniques that you go, oh, wait a minute, this is actually a lot simpler than what I've been doing, but it's logical, and it makes more sense for what I'm doing. It's tailored for what I'm doing. Because a lot of times us amateur astrophotographers, we're using a lot of free software that's not necessarily made for what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So and there's a lot of tricks that are always going on, because we're always trying to get over some factor that's limiting us. So the methods that are optimal for what we're doing are just honestly not that complicated. It's just so different than what you're used to with regular photography. But
I have found the same thing to happen in almost every specialty that I've seen, even outside of photography. One thing, as you see cars get more modern and advanced, you see a lot less junk in the engine bay. For example, just changing from carburetors to electronic fuel injection is huge. And I also remember some of photos of Elon Musk's, Saturn V engines, where it was like the first engine that they had built versus the Saturn V engine, and it's just so much simpler with a lot less plumbing and electrical. And I think the proof of a very good system and workflow does exemplify simplicity. And I've also heard, just in the education realm, if you truly understand something, you can explain it very quickly in like a sentence or two. So, yeah, I agree with that. I think if your workflow is super complex, then that is evidence of a problem just right there. So let's go ahead and talk about then moving on from being a hobbyist. You were a high schooler and you decided not to go to college, take a year off, and you were working at an old folks home. Was that correct? Okay. And that's just awesome in my opinion, because that just shows hard work. Okay. Here's another green flag for all the people who are wondering, hey, how do I scale businesses? All the employees I have hired, and I've hired 3 while I've been here at different times, I have looked for the fact that they've done a very difficult job that requires a lot of hard work and effort, and just honestly a level of suffering. So James, my first employee who I've had in other podcasts, worked at a high-end luxury car detail shop. And they're talking like $7,000 per detail. So it's incredibly detailed, and they're using, hot water that will burn you if you're not careful. And he described the process to me. And when you take that level of work ethic and you bring it into your business, that's going to be good. Jason, before he worked with me, he was working at a UPS delivery warehouse. Anybody in shipping is working hard, back-breaking work, right? And then we have Zach, who is working at an old folks home. Not only is that great, that you're helping people, but it's also a level of humility and hard work that, you're helping people who probably messed up themselves, and you're doing a lot of heavy lifting where, probably the other faculty aren't able to do that, so you're helping in. So all of these things are green flags. He's smart. He's willing to go deep into the weeds to learn a good process, and he is working hard at the same time at his previous employment. And how did I approach you? I think I reached out to you, what was it, even on Instagram?
I think it was, that, and I believe that was one of the main places that you had reached out.
Okay, and that's where I saw you. Now, all of you guys know, if you've been following me for any number of time, I'm not a huge Instagram guy. I'm more of a word of mouth, real face-to-face business, and a little bit more traditional marketing with emails, because I have found that an hour spent with emails or an hour spent face-to-face or on the phone gets me more closed business than spending an hour on Instagram interacting and posting and DMing. But I did find you on Instagram purely because your content was actually worth watching and paying attention to, and I love seeing it. Also, if you didn't know, I was interested in long exposure photography. So it wasn't astrophotography specifically, but I loved getting star trails. And that was one of the first things I was doing as an amateur photographer like 15 years ago when I was in high school. So we have that in common. All right. So I reached out to you. I introduced the idea of real estate photography to you. And what were your honest thoughts back then? And feel free, you can be as cruel as it won't change the way we work together. So,
yeah. I didn't know first thing about real estate in either aspects, but photography, obviously I had been doing it. So I was like, well, this in theory sounds like it'd actually be pretty interesting. I was a little hesitant at first, but I was like, you know what, this would be a great opportunity.
Okay.
It'll be a fantastic option to just learn. I wanted to try different areas of photography, and I thought, this would be a great way to start that journey.
So from the outside looking in, I'm not the kind of guy who, at least I don't think I am. I don't wear too many things on my sleeve. I like to fly below radar here locally and just keep to myself. Even if I do love my friends and I am a pretty extroverted person, when it comes to making a name for myself, I actually stay pretty quiet. What did you think of the real estate photography industry? Like, can he afford an employee? Like that idea? Or was it more so like, okay, I've heard of this industry and I heard that it's really good to get into? I don't know. What were your thoughts around, what did you think of the real estate photography industry?
I hadn't really ever, I obviously knew, I'd seen people do real estate photography here and there, whether it was on social media or, people talking about it, whatever. But I never really thought about it. I guess my interests were primarily on other stuff, other types of photography. But, once you reached out to me, I started thinking about it. I was like, I had looked at your work and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. I didn't know all this because you had some reels about how some of your processes for on the business side as well.
So you were watching real estate photography masterclass.
Yeah. And that was, some of your reels on there.
Okay.
And that was interesting because I could see the process, kind of peek into how it was.
By the way, quick plug, if you guys want to follow me, that's at Real Estate Photography MC on Instagram. So anyway, sorry, continue.
No, but yeah, that was a neat in look. From then on, I had my interest peaked. And when we, of course, started here, it was easier than I thought it was going to be. And then I realized, oh wait, some of these techniques don't have to be crazy, complicated. And I kind of had to take a step back, as you were talking about. That's usually better.
Right. So I know that I have talked plenty about how to do real estate photography. So in a nutshell, what do I teach my employees here? You've got to be able to do these things to meet the standard of real estate photography. And I'm not going to include, we didn't talk too much about what we were talking about in the podcast today. If you were to say we're hiring a brand new employee and I'm putting you in charge of training them, although I would prefer to train all my employees for now anyway, what would you tell them? Okay, Jonathan would say these are the essential things if you're going to do real estate photography, you've got to hit.
Well, it's time is, of course, the first factor and the most critical. And once you get into the house, you want to manage your time. You want to focus on the shot list, 2 walls, your corners. You got the whole room. You don't want to overshoot, each room. You want to keep, the master bedroom to, a couple shots, no more than 2 or 3. Your kitchen, you want to keep it within 2 to 3 shots. Keep things concise. You start overdoing and you end up with a ton of images. Some shots just aren't necessary, but eye catchers of the house you want to include, stuff that's going to sell the house.
Selling features, right?
Yeah, selling features, you definitely want to include those. That's something you can't miss. Really just, making sure you cover every part of the house and you're not missing stuff, the major things.
Yeah, we have been, after Thanksgiving, we took a bit of a break, and it's so interesting when you're doing it every day, you get very consistent and very good, and then you take a few days off, and we missed some bathrooms and everything else.
Yeah.
But that's fine. It's a slow part of the year, so we're able to go back out. Yeah, so in a nutshell, I'll just fill in some things here, and I've been training people for a long time, so I can rattle this off. First thing, you got to keep your verticals straight. You got to get your good window pulls. You got to avoid color casting. Now, when you're shooting, you don't have to worry about window pulls or color casting. That's all editing, and we outsource that, right? But you do want to make sure your brackets are good. So we're going to have 3 brackets. You don't need 5. You only need 3. If you're doing 5, you're doing too many. You can get all you need with 3, and then you got your verticals, 3 walls, 2 corners. You got your shot list. For the master bedroom, you want 2 or 3 shots. For the kitchen, you actually want more because that is one of the most important selling features, so really more like 5, and you usually end up delivering that many. But all the shared living spaces need more shots. If it's just a single person occupying that space, it needs just 1 or 2 shots. So the secondary bedroom's not important. The primary bedroom or the master bedroom is more important because those are the people who are paying for the house. They make the purchase decision. We need to make sure that master bedroom looks really good. Anyway, so that's that in a nutshell. Now, do you remember how the first days went when I first hired you on? Like, one thing I will say is I knew you were going to be good. I personally had already gotten my kind of system down because I had already trained 2 other employees. And I think I had you shooting a house in under 30 minutes. Was it 2 weeks?
That sounds about right, yeah.
Right. So if you guys are listening to this and you guys have been doing real estate photography for years and you're still not shooting a house in under a half hour, you're doing it wrong. You have to streamline your process. And you may be about to exit the podcast and be like, screw you, Jonathan. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm telling you, if you shoot faster and give yourself a limit and a box to work in, you will shoot better, not worse. And that's why with him especially, I was getting him right to the gun. When he was being trained and I gave him more time, his shots were not as good as when I started limiting his time. It engages his brain, my brain, when I do it, and yours, and makes you focus on, all right, let's get into gear here. You get a little bit of adrenaline rush, and you're thinking, all right, this is it. Let me focus, and let's get this done. And your shots turn out better. If you give yourself too much time, you're actually going to get worse shots, and man, you're cutting out time that you could be fitting in more appointments, and your profit's going to suffer. You're having more images that you have to either send off to your editor, which is costing you editing costs, or you're going to have to edit yourself, which is costing you sleep. So these things are essential, and if you haven't done them yet, you have to do them now. All right, so you get started here, and I've got you shooting under 30 minutes in like 2 weeks, and then you are a full-blown real estate photographer where I have given you your own assignment and schedule. You have your own role in the software, and you're out shooting as a team member. How long did that take?
Yeah, after the 2 weeks when I, started getting quicker at the shooting actual houses, it was, in a couple more weeks, probably, I want to say 3.5, 4 weeks, I think. I was out, fully, going on shoots, and getting them done and everything.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and that's, I just want to say that If I claim that I train people in 2 weeks and then have them fully out in the field in 30 days or 4 weeks, I'm not lying. All right, he said it himself. I'm not making false claims. So anyway, that's that. Let's talk about business here. Some people would say that I have claimed to make $250,000 a year as a single solo photographer. I have hired employees as help. I've always loved being a one-man show, so I've never been very motivated to scale up and have a huge team. So after Jason got married and moved away and James moved out to Colorado, we had a great time. There was no, bad blood there. In fact, I still have their uniforms framed and on my studio wall over here. I decided, hey, it's winter. It's going to slow down. I'm just going to shoot by myself one more time. I can have one more season as a solo photographer before, and I knew this year I was going to do some major things. I didn't know I was going to build software, but I did know that I wanted to start scaling my business, not just here locally in the Triad, but beyond. Was I making $250,000 as a solo photographer? I know you don't have access to all of my accounting, but you know how many shoots we're doing a day. And ever since you got started and trained, I have relied on you mostly to do most of the shoots. So you know what about our average order is, which is sitting around $400. And you do in high season, like how many shoots a day. And then I'm doing shoots as well. But I was able to do that all by myself before you got here. Am I lying when I say we're making $250,000 a year and we could do that as a solo?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Just for people who don't believe it. And I've been doing that, guys, for years. And that's one of the reasons why I'm able to fund a software completely on my own without having to require loans or partnerships that are just going to get in the way of honest and great development. So that is that. I just wanted to get that out of the way in case anybody's questioning that. Now let's talk about Real Estate Media Hero. A few months ago, like a year ago, I said we need to switch software because the software got bought out from a company that I don't like. And we tried looking at other software and we tried other software. How did that go? Like, you work with our business day to day. We tried other software besides the other one we were working with. The other software went great or bad?
Yeah, that software that we had used mainly, it got the job done, of course. That's why we were able to use it for so long. But there were some inconsistencies, mainly in the back end, with us delivering stuff. And there were some inconveniences, but those led into worse issues.
Right.
As we were, going out to shoots and maybe information wasn't presented properly, or, the process of switching was a little rough, but once we actually got it switched, it went good, pretty well. But I guess there were some hiccups with that software as well.
Yeah.
And no software is perfect, but this one had some obvious things that could have been fixed.
And I'm not going to name any names here, but the calendar view didn't even have day, week, or month. So if you wanted to go through the calendar, you had to go a day at a time, which was absolute pain. And I can't believe they didn't think of that. It wasn't at launch. It had been out for years. We had, if you would upload photos, they would just get scrambled. Delivery time was taking at least 2 or 3 times as long. So the way we work here at Triad Real Estate Media, we show up, we start our day at 8. Our first shoot usually is until 8:30 or 9. And that's the way we schedule it. So we have time to quality check all of our work from the previous day and deliver it in that window. After we changed software and we got used to the new software, we were still unable to get it done in that window, and it wasn't even close. So lots of issues, and then there was payment being charged twice to clients. It was a disaster. And that made me really upset. So I started looking at other software, and what made me even more upset is that they're either trying to hard sell you and get you to sign up for something that's way too expensive, and they're being very dishonest about it by purposely hiding information from you so you're uninformed and are just sold through repeated marketing and smoke and mirrors, snake oil sales tactics. I hate that. So I realized that the first software, while I got the job done, was now compromised, and there really wasn't a good other software. So after all those experiences, I decided to make my own. When did I first talk to you about that?
Well, that had been, I want to say 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. And, we started, thinking about the idea, and it was compared to the software that we had been using, we just listed everything that, was supposed to be done right. And which was, surprisingly easy. I don't know why the other software had so much issue with it, but it was.
Oh, I like the way you put it that way, because sometimes people are like, "Oh, you copied me," and yes, I have had angry messages where people have accused me of copying you. It's like, trust me, bro, I do not want to copy your software. We did not make a list of, oh, this is what they do, so we need to add that too. It was specifically of. We started with a blank. I have 3 whiteboards on the wall over there, and we started a list of all the features we'd like to have, and then we realized, like, oh, none of these other softwares even have a lot of these features. And then we realized, oh, if these other softwares have these features, they're a primary example of how to do it wrong and how we do not want to do it. So we couldn't have copied any of the software purely because their software wasn't worth modeling after. So in case anyone's ever wondering about that, no, we really had to start with a blank slate, and you have been integral in the entire process because you've always been right here. You're doing things day to day. I have over 10 years experience and still shoot on the front lines. Although for the last 4 months, I have been almost completely consumed by the software development. Anyway, so we started 4 months ago, and take us through the journey of what that's been like. You have been doing a lot of the shooting. Like, I would say you probably do 96 out of 100 shoots that we're doing right now. Like, I shoot maybe 3 times a month purely because I'm trying to prioritize always working on the software. And the reason why I need to work so much on the software is not because I'm coding every single line. I'm working with a development team that is not a full-time employees here. It's a team that I work with. And in order to be able to afford this as a solo photographer, even though I do have plenty of savings and everything else to push towards this and cash flow to push towards this, it would still be impossible if I didn't give the development team exactly what I'm looking for, with exactly how it should look, with exactly the functions that every single thing needs to have. Because if I make a mistake there, it gets very expensive very quickly, and it takes an enormously long time to do it. So in order for this to even be possible with this business model that I have on the software, it takes incredible attention to detail and thinking things through. The beauty about this is that instead of things taking longer, we're doing it faster than any software we've ever seen, and the end product is much better. And I know that I'm biased when I'm saying that, but you guys can go to realestatemediahero.com and join for free. You do have to enter your credit card information to make an account, but you are only charged if you place an order, like if you actually take an order from a real estate agent. So you can set up your account, see how awesome it is. And we, like, some of the things we did was automatic account creation. No other software is doing that. And we also did encryption. So not only can you make an account with one click, all of your information is encrypted in regards to your clients. So that's completely original to us. And then we completely rethought and re-engineered the entire ordering process so that it would be higher value for the photographer and clearer for the real estate agent, so you guys don't have to deal with annoying questions. But most importantly, the back end, day to day, is lightning quick, where you can upload all of your files in one single thing and then select where they belong, and then you're done. And at launch, a lot of people, I'm sure, were suspecting this to crash. We were a little bit worried about that as well, but we did pretty freaking good testing so that it didn't happen. And we have been using this on Tried Real Estate Media flawlessly. I mean, okay, hey, there's a few bugs, but they're tweaks. They're small things. And every step of the way, you were there helping me, like, hey, what about this? What about that? But the process here has been intensive. Now, would you say that I'm just farming this out and then sitting around all day? Or have you seen me here in Photoshop in software actually designing every single page? Am I just false claiming there, or is it actually happening?
The amount of design alone that's gone into this, just even brainstorming alone is incredible. It's, definitely a lot of hard work to the stuff I've seen go on here. It's a lot of work. The
main point I wanted to say is I have a alibi here. I'm not just forking this out. It's a real estate photography software, at least for scheduling, that is really built and designed by a real estate photographer. And I think the ease of use and the functionality of it clearly shows. And man, have I learned a lot about tech stacks and the back end of software, how things are built, how things are managed, how to speak to developers, how to manage developers, and how to make sure everyone completely understands a feature from beginning to end, but also making sure that we build out and plan the entire software from version 1, 2, and 3 from the beginning so you don't get spaghetti code. So if you guys have been wondering about Real Estate Media Hero and the legitimacy of the entire process of building the whole thing, yes, it's legitimate. Yes, we've really built it. Yes, I really own 100% of it. There's no fake stuff going on here. And the only thing we have to work on and improve on really is marketing it. And that's what we're doing a little bit more here with the podcast, giving you guys plenty of things to learn about, but also if you guys want to support us and heck, make a lot more business and a lot more money in your life and in your real estate photography business, Real Estate Media Hero would be a great way to get started on that. And it'll make your life a lot easier with a lot less pain and suffering throughout the day. All right, so we've talked about your journey into real estate photography, your history with astrophotography. We've talked about a little bit the development of Real Estate Media Hero, and we have a big announcement coming this next week or early next week, so be looking out for that. Let's talk about the next chapter that we're releasing here. And this is very early in the stages. We've been thinking about this for a long time. This was actually what I wanted to do for the last 4 months. Rather than building a software, that's what I was planning to do over the slow season, and that is building a new course for education in real estate photography, and this is going to include mentorship. If you guys have been following me for a while, or if you guys are already some of my students, you'll know that I had Real Estate Photography Masterclass.com, if you want to check it out, for years now. But the reason I made that was not necessarily to be a big income, big money kind of maker. It was really so that people could have a super solid, complete end-to-end form of education in real estate photography without having to pay way too much money or getting taken advantage of by people who don't actually know what they're doing, or they're just trying to snake oil sales you into a lot of money. The thing is, I made a mistake with that course in assuming that people who are interested in real estate photography would be able to tell the difference between a legitimate course and an illegitimate course. So my mistake, it turns out people will buy what is marketed hardest, not what is actually best quality. So I could go into that a long way. In fact, there's, in my opinion, there's complete shams out there who are selling courses and making a ton of money off of them and running away with a lot of people's money, and the people who are taking those courses don't know better. So I would love to talk about real estate photography masterclass and what we're going to do here briefly. You didn't help me build the original real estate photography masterclass, but we have gone through a little bit of real estate photography masterclass and seen that the audio could be improved. Some of the tutorials are a little bit outdated. So I've decided we're going to completely rebuild real estate photography masterclass and call it, it'll be the version 2 of real estate photography masterclass, and mentorship. So not only are we going to have updated tutorials that are super easy and streamlined, since it'll be the second time I'm building a course, they'll be very concise. We're going to have 3 different business sections, specifically one for people just getting started, one for solo photographers who have been in the game for a while but don't know how to scale. That's going to be the second business section. And then we're going to have the third business section that is for high producing photographers or teams that are looking to sustain but also grow beyond even that. So 3 major business sections, and then we're going to have education on everything, how to do everything in real estate photography. That includes photography, video, drone, FPV drone, 3D, floor plans, you name it. This includes business acquisition, how to get clients better, how to hire employees and train them. In fact, the entire photography and video section is scripted, and we have the outline of over 200 videos right now. So that when you are just getting started in real estate photography, you can watch the photography education section and learn how to do photos. And then when you scale your business and you're hiring your first employees, you can show them that same section to train them how to do real estate photography. It will not teach, the business and or anything else, because you don't necessarily want to train your competition if they're not team players and they're looking to just learn what they need so they can go into business against you. That's not good. And I've seen other courses where they promise, hey, pay $15,000 or $20,000 so that we can teach you how to scale your business. And then the tutorials are, we're not to actually train and teach you how to scale your business. We're just going to teach you the concepts. And then, it's best for you to just train your own employees. When they advertise that they were going to help train your employees.
Yeah.
So it's just wild. It's just wild stuff. Anyway, lots of stuff coming down the pipe here. And the reason I'm launching this and doing it early, usually I'd wait till it's all built out. I'm going to do a pre-launch. And the reason is because we're developing Real Estate Media Hero continually, and I would like to develop it even faster. So 100%, and this is going to be the big announcement that I make in this podcast episode, 100% of all the revenue, I'll tweak that a little bit, 90% of all the revenue, because I do donate 10% of all revenue I make from all my businesses, whether making a profit or not, to charity. So at least 10% all goes to charity. 90% will all go back into the development of Real Estate Media Hero to develop the software faster, because I have planned out features around 3 to 6 months in advance and put them in order of sequence that we're going to develop them in and then deploy them to you guys. But I want to do it faster at the same quality. In order to do that, I need to hire additional members to the development team. So my promise to you is for the next 6 months or longer, I'm going to donate or dedicate 90% of our revenue to the development of Real Estate Media Hero. Man, you can tell I'm not a professional podcaster, so sorry for all my stumbles. But that's what we're doing. In addition to all the revenue from Real Estate Photography Masterclass and Mentorship. That's version 2. So if you guys join and you want to get in on the pre-launch, in addition to the 200 videos and everything else that you're going to have, you can have the opportunity for mentorship. I don't push or require mentorship on that, because I don't think if you guys have a good course that you actually will need the mentorship. I feel like that's a false idea that people plant in you to make you feel insecure about your future, to say, hey, you need this mentorship so they can charge you thousands and thousands of dollars in order to do that. No. That's not what I'm planning to do. I'm going to give you one course for life that you don't have to renew every year for $1,000 total when it's completely built. As a pre-launch, I'm going to offer you lifetime membership and all of that for $250. And then we're going to have members in the group, including myself, that will mentor you if you want additional mentorship. But a requirement for that mentorship is that you've completed 100% of the course. Because I've done mentorship in the past, and a lot of people will start asking, hey, what camera should I buy? And they want to pay me hundreds of dollars an hour or something crazy, and I don't charge that much, by the way, to mentor them, to tell them what gear they should have when they could watch a 5-minute video in the course that they've already paid for, right? Yeah. So anyway, that's the huge announcement I wanted to make for this episode, is that, man, Real Estate Media Hero is alive. It's well. We've launched. There was no crash and burn. In fact, it went not surprisingly smoothly. We knew it was going to go smooth, but the general public is a bit shocked that, this real estate photographer built his own software. He did it by himself, or at least funded it and designed it by himself, and it wasn't a dumpster fire. No, it was actually really good, and a lot of people are using it. We have over 200 signups, and things are going flawlessly. We've had a few preferences, like, hey, can you change this location in the order form? Yes, we'll add that feature and we'll make it optional. But everything is going really smooth. So anyway, we'll work on our podcasting skills and get things going a little bit smoother. For the next episode, we may have a special guest, or we may be here again, just me and Zach answering you guys' questions. What I would love for you guys to do is, if you have some questions you'd like us to answer here at Real Estate Photography Unlocked, please leave a comment wherever you're listening to this, whether it be on Spotify or YouTube or somewhere else. And I'll make sure to include those on the next episode, and even give you a shout out with your first name or your username, whatever you're using there. So thank you guys for watching. And I know, Zach, I gave a lot of information there about Real Estate Photography Masterclass or Real Estate Media Hero. Is there anything else you want to share there?
I think it's a great things are going on, and you guys should look forward to coming things. Yeah,
well, I'm excited that I have such an incredible employee that I can rely on completely and trust, so that I can focus on huge projects like this while you handle all the business, at least the day-to-day fulfilling of appointments. So thank you. And man, how excited are you about the fact that we're going to be having all the equipment lists, the scheduling process completely streamlined, everything in your Google Calendar as it should be and as we want it. I'm just so excited about that, just having a software that I finally have that's the way it should be, and we're about to hit busy season. Well, January is coming up, but I'm having a feeling 2025 is going to be huge in regards to demand. So, and then you'll be the team leader, most likely, in March when we hire on a second employee. So anyway, that's that. Thank you guys for watching Real Estate Photography Unlocked. Hopefully you're enjoying this episode, this experimental episode with this studio and lighting. And I will see you guys episode 4. Thank you guys.